Knightline is brought to you by the Dever Team, your source for New Smyrna Beach real estate and everything else New Smyrna Beach. Go to www.thedeverteam.com and call UCF alumni Travis Dever for all your New Smyrna Beach needs. 386-690-1636. That's 386-690-1636.
Welcome to UCF Knightline, your source for UCF sports and former player information.
Hello, Night Nation. This is Andrew Phegley coming to you from the 1148 studios, and this is Knightline 235 from the award-winning Knightline Sports Network. Joining me again is...
KnightBengal.
Okay, sound like Oprah there. Roger Phipps, welcome again. And what do we got going on?
Well, leading off this week, we've got playoff prophecy, poll prognostication, recruiting rewind, hoops headlines, postponing playing in paradise, opting out, stadium sponsors, and your questions in Ask Knightline.
Okay. You definitely got your radio voice going today. All right. Well, first of all, the people at UCF has finally spoken. The coaches spoke a little bit more. They spoke last week, but we didn't do a show. We had all kinds of stuff going on. So I finally got clips for you again. Let's go through those really quick here and get that going. Here's Josh Heupel on how things have been going so far.
Been great since we've gotten on the grass. Man, they've competed extremely hard. And I think our plan was to kind of slowly progress them to where we're ultimately going to need to be by the time we get to kickoff. And it was a really unique summer, just as far as guys being here in the building, working out, the type of shape that they were in. You really had, we brought kids back in almost 3 different waves. So you had a team that was, in some respects, in 3 different conditioning levels. So, early we were in the indoor, and, in the middle portion of this first 10 days, we kind of broke up practice where we were outside and then finished with our team sets inside. Guys kind of catch their breath and get their legs back underneath them and finish with the right tempo that we wanted at the end of practice. And guys have started playing themselves into shape. The last few days we've been outside the entire time, and they've continued to strain and improve their conditioning. And I like on that side where it's headed. I think for a lot of our young players, they've really progressed here in the first 10 days, have a great understanding of what we're doing. Part of the ruling just in where we were at in late spring, early summer, those guys being able to jump on Zoom calls and get some of your installs maybe a little bit earlier than they typically are when they have to be here on campus has accelerated their understanding of what we're doing in all 3 phases of the game as well.
All right, so it sounds like things are going fairly well out there. Obviously, it's not the same as it's ever been before. It's a little bit different, so at least it's going. And we're getting closer and closer to having football here in about 3 weeks, I think.
Yeah, man, super excited to hear Coach speak. I mean, seriously, you hear Coach speak, but I'm actually excited to hear Coach speak. And the reason for that is we're getting closer to football. So hearing him talk about the little bits of information that we're getting, understanding that they're practicing, they had a scrimmage this past weekend. I mean, to me, it's getting my excitement level going higher and higher because we're getting closer to football. And the closer we get, that means the more likely it is that we have a season. So super excited.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, here's what he had to say about what he wanted to see in that scrimmage that was actually yesterday. But this is what he wanted to see. This was, I think, Thursday when he talked to everybody.
You got a bunch of questions. You got questions at every position group. Your special teams, you want to see them go compete and take a job on the special team side of it as well. Your good players that have played a lot of football. You want to see them be extremely sharp early, probably get them out in the middle portion of the scrimmage. And you want to see your young guys operate and handle and get a signal, communicate, get lined up, and then have your eyes on the right place and go make a play. And that's, on offense and defense.
First of all, I want to give props to the people at UCF for making this audio a hell of a lot better. because I always complain about the Zoom audio, and they have fixed it.
Well, they're listening to you, Andrew.
Finally, they have fixed it. I hope they are. I mean, they should be listening to this. Anyway, thank you, Dan, and whoever else was. Eric DeSalvo, if you were involved in that, thank you as well. So you saw or you heard a lot of questions that they have. Obviously, they want to see what people have got in real time kind of things, and if they can pull off what they've been practicing. So that's the big key to a scrimmage. He was also asked about the offensive line, and that's a little bit of a question with a couple things that are going on. So let's hear what he had to say about that.
A lot of great competition on the offensive line. Guys that have played a lot of football, they're still battling for time on the football field. Marcus, in January and February grew as a football player, his strength and a lot of understanding in what we're doing in the first 4 days of practice. He's come back a much better player and has had a great training camp here in the last 2-3 days. Has played at a really high level. You mentioned Matt Lee inside. Love the understanding, extremely smart player. The tempo we play at, the ability to communicate after he recognizes what he's seeing from the other side of the line of scrimmage. Get all five of our guys in sync has been really good through training camp. And, as multiple as we are on the defensive front, probably as hard, as complicated as you're going to see throughout the course of the season. The other thing with him is just his ability to strain and play with great strength and pad level and, help distort the line of scrimmage on the interior. So love the mentality and attitude that he's playing with. We're deep at the guard position, a lot of competition there. Have the ability to slide guys both left and right. And Cole's got a little bit of center work as well, Cole Schneider, and at the tackle position, Ed's had a good camp. Josh McMullen, there's multiple guys that have done a really good job out there. Sam's ability, at times, he's played all 5 spots in our first couple of years here. That flexibility is critical for us. The depth is important. You get into the season, the amount of time you've had your kids, the amount of time that they've been away, I think that depth is going to be critically important.
All right. Well, the thing that I like the most that I heard in that clip was that, he has a bunch of guys that can slide around and play other spots, because there are some questions. There's a question at center this year of who is actually going to be doing that and how proficiently they're going to be doing that as well. So that's a big deal. And so to have multiple players that could jump into that spot and play that spot if needed, that's a big deal. That's a huge, huge, huge position in on the offensive line, that center position.
Yeah, it starts at they're the ones that are sitting there and communicating to the rest of the line. They're reading the defenses, what they're giving, calling different protections, all that fun stuff from the center position. The other thing that I think is really important as we progress through the season is, if someone happens to get sick, we need to have that depth to be able to flip-flop people as we progress throughout the season. So from that perspective, whether it be any position on the field, it's super important, but really important in that O-line. For continuity and to make sure we're open in running lanes and Dylan has enough time to pass the ball and all of the different things that we're doing in our offense, it's super important that multiple people can do it. Yeah,
one of the things as well is if you saw the Austin Peay game last night, we finally had some college football. 2 FCS teams, were playing, and Austin Peay's long snapper was out for some reason, which caused all kinds of havoc for them. So that's another position that could be. I hope that they have multiple players that can do that well, because that can be a big deal. All right, speaking of specialists a little bit, here's what Josh Heupel had to say about the kickers.
They're competing every single day. Daniel's done a really good job. Obviously last year, besides the kicks that went out of bounds, we hope to correct that, but his ability to put the ball deep in the end zone is a huge part of the game and putting our defense on the field in a positive situation. Love his leg. He's been really consistent. His operation time and putting the ball through the uprights. He banged one the other day from 52 and had plenty of room to spare and really good operation time and height on the ball. So I like what he's doing. Riley's got a really promising career in front of him. Guys, continuing to get better just fundamentally, plant foot placement, all the little things that are critical for that guy to be successful. Coach Toth has done a great job with him fundamentally.
All right, well, kicker obviously is a big deal. We have to have that position good. Orbowski there, you heard Josh Heupel joke a little bit about how he was kicking, some of the kickoffs out of bounds last year. That was a big deal. So that can't happen when he's kicking field goals, but it doesn't seem like when he's kicking field goals, that's, really the thing that happens. Kicking off and kicking field goals is a completely different thing. So, kicking off is just pounding it like a drive in playing golf. And most of the kickoff, or most of the
field
goals. Thank you. Jeez. I'm a little rusty and tired. Anyway, the field goals are a little bit more like, your approach shot to the, to the green. So a little chip shot, kick, a field goal is a much different thing than kicking off. So
if he can consistently hit 52, 53 yarders, we're going to be in good shape there. But
hopefully we don't need to do that, though. That's the other thing. We don't want to go out there and have to kick 52 or 53 yard field gols ever.
Yep.
So the fact that he can do that is exciting, though. The kid has all kinds of power. In a high school tape that I saw of him, he kicked a 60-something yarder. So he's got the power. He just needs the control. So we shall see. All right, Josh Heupel on the quarterbacks next.
Year 1 to year 2 for a quarterback, ton of growth. There is every year, but there's a ton of growth there that can happen. And he had a really good grasp on what we're doing, but just complete knowledge and control over what's going on. His ability to check at the line of scrimmage when the play is not right, to understand those checks and get us into a good play, to change protections. It changes what you're able to do offensively when your quarterback has that kind of command, because he can get you out of the bad situation. And year 1 as a play caller, you're trying to protect him a little bit, and we're ultimately really aggressive still, but you want to make sure that you put him in an advantageous situation and try to allow him to feel comfortable. You're able to continue to grow here this year, and I think that's been the biggest thing for him, is just complete command in what we're doing. Recognition of defenses, to understanding protections, to understanding route scheme, and where and why we're trying to attack. The understanding of the why is a huge difference for him. Our young quarterbacks in the room with them have continued to grow too, and a lot of competition that they push each other in a positive way.
All right, nothing too horribly exciting there. I did want to hear a little bit about the quarterback, the backup quarterback position, because from what I understand, that has changed. So there are rumors that Darryl Mack will be one of the guys that opts out of the season. So from what I understand, Quadri Jones is the backup quarterback. So we shall see about that, hopefully in the next week or so. He did say something in the press conference, as the players that are opting out have not signed the papers to opt out yet, and they're working on that. So we should know something very soon, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But as far as the quarterback situation, it would have been nice to hear, something about that, but we didn't get that. So, and that's what Heupel does sometimes. A lot of coach speak here. Nothing has changed. Maybe even a little bit more this year. All right, here is Josh Heupel on the running backs.
Word is AK's doing a great job up in Philly right now too, having a great camp. We're excited for him. There is a lot of guys that have played a lot of football in that room and played at a really high level, really good understanding in everything that we're doing. And those guys have for a long time. Protections, understanding how to press the line of scrimmage, our run schemes against every front, the nuances of that. The young guys that are in the room have really taken a jump. Demarius Goods had a great training camp. Just a completely different player than he was a fall ago, and just understanding and confidence, like where that group's continuing to trend.
All right. Did not say too much about Greg McCrae there, which kind of concerns me a little bit. I'd like to see him come back and have an incredible year this year. So that's a little bit of a question as well. There are, a bunch of guys out there, though. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if – I've always said with him, I'm not sure that Bentavious is a all-down running back. I mean, we still got Otis in that group as well. But Greg McCrae is the one that I would really love to see get the ball a lot more if he's healthy. You don't even know if he's healthy yet.
That's true.
Because he was not healthy last year at all, pretty much the entire season. So, okay, Josh Heupel on the standouts so far from camp.
Last time I was on, I talked a lot about our young players, young skill guys on both sides of the line of scrimmage, defensive backfield and at the wide receiver group. I think our young linebackers have had a really good camp. That's Jeremiah and Tatum, guys that have been here for a year, really starting to grow. Quade Mosier, like where those guys are continuing to trend in their physicality and their ability to communicate and make plays in the middle portion of our defense. I think it's critical. And offensively, I think the running back group, the depth and the growth of those young players there, Demarius Good, Johnny Richardson, is really promising.
All right, remember what he said about the young linebackers, because we're going to hear a little bit more about that when we hear from Randy Shannon here in just a minute. So remember that part. All right, and the last clip from Josh Heupel is about the transfers that have been coming in.
Yeah, all those guys have gotten clear. They're out on the practice field doing a really good job here. And I say that Deontay has not been on the practice field yet. But Jaden Francois is getting comfortable in what we're doing, on the defense side of it and special teams. There's a lot of growth that has to happen really quick. You think about all the meetings that the rest of our, units and position groups have had. There's a lot to catch up to really quickly. RJ Harvey's come in, great attitude, demeanor, and playing the running back position truly exclusively for the first time in his career. There's a ton of growth there, but like what he's doing.
All right, he's talking about the transfer that was a quarterback at Virginia, but now is a running back at UCF is who he was talking about in the end there. And we may get into a little bit more of that and talk a little bit more about those guys here in a little while. Let's switch over to Randy Shannon, though, and hear what he had to say. It's few and far between when we hear from Randy Shannon. And so, whatever. Here's what Randy Shannon had to say, though, on practice so far.
It's been great. Guys adapted to it very well. Guys been very enthusiastic, both sides of the football. We've had some great competitions. We've moved guys around because you always got to prepare for the future and prepare for things that what if. And we've done a great job on both sides of the football of different guys playing with different people. And it's been fun, and guys been stepping up and having fun with it, and just building a team, building the depth on the football team.
All right, so the next clip here, I think it was Matt Murschel possibly, or somebody from one of the TV stations. I can't remember who actually was the person to field this question, but the question basically was about roster management and moving players around. So he said something a little bit about that in that first clip. So let's hear this clip. It's a combined clip from two questions.
I mean, that's the biggest thing. It's almost like when I was in the NFL, kind of unique that, you're traveling with 5 linebackers. One of them is a special teams guy. Another one have to play all 3, and you got to pick one of the other guys to play the other 2. And every team that I've been with, I mean, it's been that type of situation. I think for us right now, doing those things on both sides of the football, you build a lot of depth, and then you get into the point of playing your best guys instead of I play defensive tackle or I play defensive end or I play linebacker. You start developing guys to play the next best guy, and it brings a lot of continuity to the team, but also it challenges people to keep playing at a high level and not just sit back and say, well, I'm the backup to this position, because you can move guys around, and the more depth that you build, it gives you more leeway to move people around and have a much better football team. I'll give you a scenario. Richie has played safety, nickel, and cornerback. Okay, so the older guy always move. We played Antoine Carrier at boundary and field safety. Jermaine McMillan has played both boundary and field safety. Dylan Lester, coming off the knee, has been tremendous, unbelievable. He's back to what we thought he would be, fast, can run, cut, and everything else. He has played both safety position and also nickel position. So we're moving guys around because you never know what can happen, but it's also bringing a lot of competition with that also. So we leave the young guys steady. They play corner. Don't mess with the young guys. move the veterans around, and those are guys that should be able to pick things up.
All right, some of the most insightful stuff that we've probably ever heard from Randy Shannon. I think he's actually enjoying talking to the media. He's had a little bit of a break to do it. We hadn't heard from him for a while. So that stuff there that he said, though, was important. It's important to get those guys to move around, especially with the times that we're having today, just like they said before, like Heupel was talking about it as well. So good stuff there. All right, the next one here we'll go to a little bit about recruiting. We'll jump around a little bit. So this one's about recruiting and kind of the new way. Randy Shannon obviously is a master recruiter and has done extremely well recruiting at UCF.
The biggest thing you have to do, you cannot make any kind of, I don't know what you call it, mistakes, but you got to make sure that you have everything in order. A lot of Zoom calls, a lot of parent Zoom interaction, there's a lot of academic Zoom calls, but you got to make sure that you find out that it's not about the athletic ability now. Athletic ability, we can judge, we can see, but you have to do all the things outside of like being in NFL. I mean, you have to find out everything about somebody because you're investing a lot of time and a lot of money in that person. It's just like in recruiting. You're investing a lot of time and a lot of money for scholarships. And you got to make sure that you checked up and dotted your I's and crossed your T's to make sure that this guy fits what we want to do. This guy fits what we're doing as a program. And then I think a lot of times we get caught up in, not us, but just coaches, we get caught in, oh, he's an athlete. But all of a sudden, this athlete becomes something else off the field. And then now that becomes another problem. And that's the biggest thing that's hard. So you got to depend on a lot of the counselors, the coaches, and try to reach out to different people that may have known the person that you're recruiting or have touched that person.
All right, so obviously recruiting is different now with the COVID thing. Hopefully it'll get back to normal fairly soon and they can actually go out and see these kids in person instead of having to do it on Zoom. I wouldn't want to be recruited on Zoom personally. I would want to meet face-to-face with these guys, so I think that's important. But they've been doing a great job with it, as far as I'm concerned, on Zoom, if that's what they've had to do. All right, here is what Randy Shannon says are the goals for this year on the defense.
Anything that we self-scout from the year before to last year, we did the same thing this year. The biggest thing, we weren't very good the first year in third down. We was very good in red zone, but not in third down. And we got off the field a lot. We was the top 5 in the country. We had a lot of negative plays. We were number 1 in the country. And we wasn't giving up the big plays like we did the year before. The year before, we was averaging, I think, the first year, it was averaging maybe about 8 big plays of 15 to 20 yards a game. That was cut down to about 3. So that's the biggest difference. This year, we got to stay on top of creating negative plays in third down. Those are the 2 most important things. But also, we got to do a better job in the red zone. Our red zone wasn't where we wanted to be at. We got to stop giving up touchdowns or start kicking more field goals. And I think we can improve on those things a lot, but we got to keep up with the third down emphasis and also create negative plays.
All right, and this is the clip right here that I wanted you to remember what Heupel said about the young linebackers, because here's where Randy Shannon talks about Tatum Bethune and Baptiste as well. Those guys are sophomores this year, and it'll be very important for them to play good.
They've made a tremendous jump as far as right now this summer. Both of them are playing both positions. So Jeremiah's playing both Mike and Will. Tatum is playing both. Quaid is the only guy that doesn't play both. And so we got Eric Mitchell, can do all 3. So we're training the other guys to do those situations too. And just to build the depth. And they've adapted to it. They're having fun. We've mixed them up. I've put Tatum with Eric Mitchell and Eric Gilliard. I put Jeremiah with those guys. I put Eric Mitchell with Quaid. It's just moving them around and making them all feel comfortable with each other, and they've done that.
All right, well, that's good that these guys are stepping up, especially in their sophomore year. It's an important thing to go from freshman to sophomore and make those big changes, so that's good. There was a question about leaders, so here's what Randy Shannon had to say about the leaders on the defense.
The seniors have done a good job, to be honest with you. The seniors on defense have done a good job of being that guy. Even a guy like Brandon Moore, he's not even practicing. But on that sideline, he is in those cornerbacks' head every second of the day. And that's becoming a leader, a guy who can contribute on the sideline when the coaches are coaching, but making sure that the young guys are staying in tune and communicate with them. So we got a lot of guys who's doing that. We don't have any type of rah-rah guys like that, but we got a lot of guys that's mending and communicating with the young guys, but also making sure guys play at a high level. And you look at it the same way on offense. A lot of seniors, they've been here a lot, so they've done a great job on offense also.
All right, here's the last clip for these guys, and Randy Shannon had something to say about Devad Wilson, who is a corner that came from Georgia, and Randy Shannon's known him for quite a while.
I recruited him when I was at the University of Florida, and he can bring a lot of diversity to us. And but like anything else, you have to learn what we do. That's going to be the biggest change more than anything, of learning what we're doing on defense. And the one thing about it, he's very competitive. Guys on the team know him. He's not a guy that thinks I'm better than anybody. He's a very confident person, but he knows that right now he's not where he needs to be in the mix by what we're trying to do. But we're expecting anybody to come here, if we recruit you, to be a part of the rotation. We're not bringing guys in here just to say, okay, you're a backup for a year. We're bringing guys in here to compete, to take people's jobs, to make us better.
All right, well, that's it for the clips. I'm just happy to have some clips. We haven't had those in a long time. So that makes everything better.
Well, listen about Devad Wilson, and for me, my takeaway from Shannon's complete interview is basically that they have a lot of foresight going into this and thinking about how they're going to approach this, and some planning into moving people around so that we're ready for the season. Because I think everybody's goal, I know from the fan base, I know mine is, yours is, this may be a golden ticket opportunity for us this year. So having that depth and having that foresight to think through those things, I think is super important. And then sprinkling in people like Devad Wilson. And, he was saying on one hand, hey, we don't expect him to come in, the moment he steps on campus. We've got great personnel here. He's got to earn it. But then the flip side is we expect people to come here and earn those starting spots.
Absolutely. All right, so let's move on to some stuff that you had written on this sheet here. You made our sheet for us this week, and you did a great job, by the way.
Thank you.
So let's talk about some of this stuff. You have a lot of stuff here. Let's talk about the polls. The polls came out, and the funniest thing and the weirdest thing that I saw in those polls is that it has the teams that aren't even playing this year in the polls. And I think that's freaking ridiculous. Like, absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's just them covering their keisters until, it's official that they aren't playing. But
no, it's official. They've said that they weren't playing.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's official. So I have no idea why they would leave all these teams where we would be ranked number 21 in the freaking AP poll, where we should be like, 13th or 14th?
13th or 14th, depending on the poll.
It's freaking ridiculous. I mean, you can't rank teams that aren't going to play.
Well, clearly you can.
I mean, well, they can, but normal people wouldn't do that.
No, I agree with you 100%.
I mean, there's obviously, something going on there. It's just more of the bias of college football there, as far as I'm concerned. So anyway, 21st in the AP poll and the coaches poll. I guess the coaches ranked the teams that weren't playing as well.
Yes, they did.
That's crazy. All right, so we're the top-rated G5 team, obviously, in there. And then in the AP, we're rated as the second highest behind Cincinnati. They beat us last year. Whatever, that's fine. It could be the golden ticket year. This could be the year. The AAC in general, whoever wins the AAC, not just UCF, but we're going to say it's probably going to be UCF. We hope that it's going to be UCF. It might be, it might not be. I mean, it could easily be Cincinnati. They were the champions last year. So, I mean, you can dog on me for saying that if you want, but I'm not saying that we're going to win the entire conference this year, because last year we didn't play good enough to do it.
Well, I mean, I think something you heard in the coaches and what they were saying was they dialed back Dylan Gabriel a little bit last year. We saw that when everybody was frustrated and understanding why he wasn't running. So you saw that there. Cincy's big advantage, I think, is not necessarily their offense, but obviously their defense, and they return a lot of that defense for this year, so they're going to be a tough out.
And that's why they're ranked as high as they are.
Yep, and then Memphis is interesting because breaking news today, it looks like Kenneth Gainwell has opted out. which was a huge piece to their offense. So that obviously impacts the race for the AAC. We've been talking the whole time. It's been between those three teams. So they've got a new coach, and they've lost their star running back. So, to me, obviously Memphis is a dangerous team. What's important is we're playing at Memphis this year, and losing Gainwell is definitely advantageous for us.
I think Memphis was a dangerous team with their coach that they had before, Norvell. I think they were a dangerous team because of Norvell. I don't think that they're a dangerous team with a new head coach as of yet. They'd have to prove that they're a dangerous team. You know what I'm saying?
No, I do.
To be involved or to be in the same conversation as UCF and Cincinnati, I don't think they belong in that conversation yet. And I just think people are going by what they were before, but they're going to be something different now without Norvell.
Well, you saw that reflected in the polls. I mean, they were number 26 and number 27, depending on which poll you looked at. So people aren't sure. You know what I mean? The one thing that is good for them is that the coach that they hired came from within Norvell's system. So that will help out there. But you're right. I think the national conversation is it's Cincy UCF. A lot of folks are giving Cincy the nod just simply because they won last year and they have a strong defense. The flip side of that is we lost by a grand total of 7 points in all three games, by a grand total of 7 points. And something that was said a long time ago by Phil Steele, when he sees teams like that have a swing like that, football gods, it bounces one way or the other. You had a freshman QB. It was that close. Little mistakes made the difference in those games. I think we cleaned those up this year. And if we're that good of a team to do that with a freshman quarterback, I think we're going to be really dangerous in the AAC.
Yeah, hopefully. All right, but I'm not counting Memphis in that, personally. Just me personally. I'm not scared or worried at all about Memphis for this year.
Well, we have to get to the East first anyway.
Yeah, yeah. So, what else here? So, what else you got?
Well, one of the things we were talking about, and you were mentioning earlier, is that after Week 1 starts, so FBS, not FCS, Week 1 starts, the pollsters have said that they are going to eliminate those teams that aren't playing, right? So
obviously,
Big Ten, Pac-12 teams are going to be gone. If that happens, and as the polls sit today, we would move up to number 14 in the AP and 13 in the coaches. Now, why that's interesting is because if we start this high Week 1, right, and we continue to win, 3 or 4 weeks from now, we could very easily, 2 or 3 weeks from now, we could very easily be in the top 10, which puts us in the driver's seat or in a much better position than we've ever been to be able to participate in the playoff.
Yeah, yes and no. I'll agree with part of that. We're not playing any ranked opponents in the first couple of weeks. So yes, if we win, it shows that we can win against the opponents that we have. But I think to move up even farther than that, though, we would have to play somebody. And this year, the only even Power 5 team we're playing is Georgia Tech.
Right.
So I don't think that they're going to make it very easy for us to move up farther than even where we're at now. We'll see about that. But in the past, it's been incredibly difficult when we're not playing ranked opponents to move up.
But if we remove 2/5 of the teams out there that could be placed in front of us, I think that would help us.
I understand that, but there's also the teams that are in front of us that are playing ranked opponents as well.
So quality losses is basically what you're saying.
Yes. And I think that it's going to, for us to get up in there, in the top 10, the top 8 or whatever, we're going to have, the other teams are going to have to lose. Those teams that are up there, that are ranked ahead of us, will have to lose.
And they're all playing each other.
They're all playing each other. We're not playing any of them. That's going to be the one thing that holds us back as far as I'm concerned, because we're not playing any of those teams. And they're going to hold it against us because they can and they will and they always have. So
how important does that UNC game look now?
Yeah, it would have been incredibly important just because both of us would have been ranked opponents. I mean, were they ranked in there? What were they ranked in the
I think they were poll? 17th or 18th.
See, so that would have helped us if we beat them.
Yeah.
And I really thought that we had a good chance to win that game, especially with
at home?
with it
Absolutely.
being at home. So, I still think that we're going to get snubbed somehow. But I would think, though, as well, with it just being the Power 3 instead of the Power 5, hopefully they would give an AAC team a chance in there. I mean, I can't really see how they couldn't unless those teams above didn't have their quality losses.
Well, I mean, looking across the spectrum, you've got the four-letter network, which we will not name, has us as the seventh most likely candidate to make the playoff. Also, Jeff Allen, with the AAC report, which you can find on this network, had Phil Steele on as well recently, and he has us in his playoff. So I've seen three predictors so far that have mentioned us for the playoff, which is far better than what we normally get, which is, hey, it's 3-4 weeks out from the season. We've hit our artificial glass ceiling, and we're not going to punch through 16 or 15 for a couple of weeks. And then we're just outside the top four.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. Let's take a break here, and we're going to be right back, and we'll talk about all this stuff a little bit more when Knightline 235 continues.
Hey, this is Travis Dever, Kai's Real Estate, the Dever team, New Smyrna Beach. Your source for real estate and everything else, New Smyrna Beach. Proud sponsor of Knightline. Call me anytime at 386-690-1636. That's 386-690-1636. Let me show you my hometown, New Smyrna Beach, UCF's favorite beach. Go Knights and charge on.
Welcome. This is a promo for the Take a Left at Albuquerque podcast, new to the Knightline Sports Network. You should listen to it. I say things like this.
We need to stop blaming Jerry because we would do the exact same thing if we owned the Dallas freaking Cowboys. Do you know how much fun it is to own the Dallas Cowboys?
My guests will say things sometimes like this.
It's the Lord of the Flies thing that happens when they don't understand that things are wrong. Spoiler alert, until Piggy dies.
Lord of the Flies has been out for like 100 years. I don't even know.
Yeah. Sorry to everyone at home who I spoiled the book for. A book's been out for like 90 years or something.
And sometimes, rarely though, I'll say really stupid things like this. If they don't make it out of the West and the Raptors get to the finals, I will go on either this show or whoever's show and say that Kawhi Leonard is overrated because I have too much evidence of it. New episodes drop every Friday with me and some of my good friends right here on the Knightline Sports Network. Thank you for your time, and now back to your regularly scheduled programming. Oh, wait. I'm being told in my ear that this is a podcast, and there are no schedules. Well, this is awkward.
All right, Sam Albuquerque there. You guys did a very, very good job of listening to the first couple of weeks of Sam Albuquerque's show left at Albuquerque. I appreciate that. It is the first show on the Knightline Sports Network that is not a UCF show. Sam did go to UCF, though, so he has that going for him. He is a graduate of UCF. He just wanted to do a show about some other stuff, so I thought, why not? And we can expand and get beyond some stuff about UCF, which there's all kinds of stuff that goes on out there, and it will allow us to expand outside of just the UCF realm. I think we have a lot of UCF stuff going right now, but there's no reason why we can't bring some other stuff in. And Sam is a great guy, and I'm really, really happy that he is a part of the Knightline Sports Network. So thank you very much for listening to him, and please continue. He is very entertaining.
Yeah, and for those Magic fans, he does talk a little Magic on there, and you never know his topics. I mean, the first week he was talking about weddings, so if you want to know about different types of weddings, you've got the Orlando Magic and the weddings all in one podcast.
All kinds of stuff. Sam is very entertaining and a great, great guy. So good to have him on board. All right, so back to the Knightline podcast here. So we're talking about the polls. What else? We're talking about playoff stuff. Yeah, so let's continue with that. I'll let you go with this. We're at number 4.
All right, so the read says,
well, you don't have to read it. Just just talk about the topic.
Okay, so if a tree falls and no one is there to see it, did it really happen? So for us Knight fans, the good news is we're going to be able to see it. So, when we're talking about, what we're talking about is attendance, right? So there's been a lot of rumors going around lately because we had a lack of concrete conversation from our friends over
This is all speculation, by the way.
So that's basically what I'm saying, is we haven't heard anything concrete. But some rumors that are going around is that kind of align with what other entities have been doing around the state. 25% capacity maximum, including students. That's approximately 11,000 tickets for our stadium. Currently, students account for 27% of capacity on a normal basis. So doing some quick math, that would be around 3,000 tickets and about 8,000 for season ticket holders.
But I would say there are not nearly as many students on campus as there normally would be. There are some that stayed home. So I think that number will be a bit lower than that for students personally.
Well, it'll be interesting because collectively they are one of the largest donors for the program. So it's going to be interesting to see how they split that up. Like if they're going to give more towards the season ticket holders and take a little bit more from the students, which is what I think they will do eventually, or if they kind of keep it around the same percentage, because there's only so many ways you can slice this pie and you want to keep people engaged. So what's your better bet? Is it try to reward your existing season ticket holder base and keep them engaged? Or are you going to try to, maintain your commitment to your students, and where does that mix go?
Yeah. Well, I think that you have to split it evenly. And yes, the students pay a lot with their fee that's involved in their hours and all that stuff. But I really wouldn't say that the students are one of the top people that make donations. I mean, and I assume that you're saying from their fees that they pay.
Correct.
Yeah. So I just think that needs to be stated that way. There are a lot of people though that have paid into funds and pay a lot of money for their club seats, for their reserved parking, for all this stuff. And it says here no tailgating or reserved parking. To me, if you can't go to a game and do your tailgating and the normal stuff that you do, I personally would rather watch it at home. Tailgating is one of the biggest things that I love to do. We have a blast out there. We do it up. If you've ever been to our tailgate, you have.
Yep.
A lot of times, you know that we take it very seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And without that, I don't want to deal with the traffic. You know what I'm saying? Without that stuff, I can see it better watching it at home. I can talk about it better later by seeing it better. I'm good with staying home, especially if they're going to limit. I'll let my seats go to somebody else. That really wants to be there. I mean, I love to be at the games. Don't get me wrong, but if it's got to be this way, and especially, I guess I would rather have a lot of students in there personally. So I don't know. I mean, I could take it or leave it as far as going there if you can't do all the rest of the stuff. And there's going to be a lot of restrictions, and it's going to be even worse getting to your seat. Where's your seat going to be? You're not going to have the same seats probably because they've said they're going to distance people out.
They're going to spread them out.
So people are going to be spread all over the place. You're not going to have the normal seat that you're in. I have specific seats that I picked so I could see the freaking game. You know what I'm saying? That's another downer for me. So.
Well, I'm the same way as you are from that perspective. I mean, as you know, I take my kids to the games, and one of the things that I specifically chose and waited on to get was 50-yard line seats. So I have 50-yard line seats. So if they come back and tell me, hey, the folks in the tower who are paying more than you are, yes, I acknowledge that. They get first dibs and we're going to spread them out and they get the 50-yard line seats, then that would make me less apt to want to go to the game and see it live as well, right? The flip side of that too, I agree with you on the tailgating. That's part of the experience, right? And UCF spent a lot of time and effort, at least lately in the past 3 or 4 years, building up that experience with all the other things they have going on. But for us personally, it's the camaraderie, seeing your friends, like hanging out. There may be some fireball involved, but at the end of the day, that's what that experience is about. Now, you have FSU, who recently came out, and they said they're going to allow 2 hours. So they've cut theirs from 4 hours to 2 hours on the tailgating experience. But if this is true, and again, that's a big if this is true, no tailgating whatsoever would certainly, I think, tip the scales for a lot of people.
And I think there would be a lot of people that would agree with me that if you don't get to do that kind of stuff, it makes the experience not the same, and it's not nearly as fun. Well,
and I think maybe that's why they're doing it, right? Because there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be pissed off season ticket holders. Hey, so-and-so from the Tower Club is going to get your seats. You're getting pushed out.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people also that pay really good money for their tailgating spots.
Yes.
So especially if you're in the the softball lot with an RV spot or something like that. That's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money.
So I don't know. And then you had on here no reserved parking as well. That's interesting.
Yeah, so
I don't know how they would do that. But
well, what they're saying online, and again, this is all speculation, but what they're saying online is that it would be assigned based on your seat. So basically, they would say, all right, you've locked into this seat, you get this specific assigned parking spot.
Interesting. Okay, good luck with that, because you know how it gets out there. So, all right, now what is this flaming hot take of the week?
Well, so there's obviously we know that there's some volatility in our scheduling, and we've had some teams drop out this year. So the question is, if there are only 4 games this year at home, will most people defer to next year? And if not, would you attend? So if it's not just, okay, you don't get your normal seats, you don't get to tailgate, but if we don't get enough games on the schedule, where does that dividing line stop? So just purely looking at it from that aspect.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that Danny White is working on getting more home games. I think he's trying to get at least another team or 2 on the schedule of teams that have dropped out. So, I mean, I don't know if that's... I guess right now there's only 4 home games on there, but I don't know if that's the way that it'll turn out. So
I hope not. I mean, we've got a few weeks in play. We talk a little bit later about that, about the scheduling side of it. But, for me, if you're saying, okay, full price of attendance, but you only get 4 games, that would be problematic for me. Now, the flip side of that is, again, going back to those online rumors, what has been discussed online is that there may be a bank for your funds. So, for example, if you paid for your season tickets for this year, which I have, they're basically saying, okay, here's a bank. You get priority based on your priority points, and then you can go buy individual tickets. Whatever you don't use, we move over into 2021. So that, I think, is equitable. The other part about it would be if we could just move the entire allotment to 2021. I'll be honest, I have little kids, and in my situation, it might make more sense just to move it to next year as long as I can lock in my seats for next year.
Yeah. And I would, kind of agree with that as well. So, yeah. All right, let's move on here. So since we were talking about the stadium experience, let's talk a little bit more about that schedule. I think that's where we were going here.
Yeah.
So the Georgia Tech game, I guess some things have come out about that. Is that correct?
Yeah, so Georgia Tech has begun starting to sell based on their priority system to their fans. There's been some parents that have mentioned that there may only be enough tickets available through UCF for family of players and whatnot. So that means that we're going to have to go out in the secondary system. I can confirm on StubHub there's already tickets out there. The fees are a little outrageous, but it appears that there's only going to be enough tickets for the families of players. Everybody else is going to have to either try to buy through Georgia Tech or in the secondary market.
Okay. Well, I mean, this is just a really weird year. So I guess that stuff happens. I mean, that's a bummer. But I don't think a lot of people get their tickets through UCF anyway when they go to these games. So some do, some don't.
Well, the other part of it, I mean, I kind of look at it.
You can get better tickets,
on StubHub, yeah. But what I will say, and that's because the opposing schools normally pick the sections where where UCF fans would sit,
right.
and they're usually in really poor parts of the stadium. Now, that being said, I do think it's a glass half full situation because we weren't even sure if there were going to be tickets available to UCF fans. So a lot of people had already booked their hotels, et cetera, in advance for this game, and now they may actually have access to tickets, which would allow them to go, which is good for UCF.
Yeah. Okay. I guess there was rumors of a BYU game, possibly?
Yeah, so
BYU's got something. They're independent, so they can do whatever they want.
They can do whatever they want, and they've had several cancellations because the Mountain West no longer played. They were due to play Boise this year and a few other schools from the Mountain West, so that opened up some holes on their schedule. The only opening that works for both teams right now would be November 7th. If you watch the video conference, the Zoom call with Coach Heupel, there was that slight smirk when he was asked about it during the interview. Some people took that as acknowledgement of something or the other. But basically he was saying that it's up to Danny, but he's working on it. The name that kept floating up from both BYU folks and on the UCF side was BYU.
On Twitter or something, on social media?
Twitter, social media, some fan type of boards and whatnot. Both on the UCF and the BYU side, that they were hearing that this could be close. We have played them before. They have a relationship with the AAC, so it would make sense to be able to do that, and they are playing a couple of other schools this year. So it's kind of almost like the Notre Dame relationship with the ACC. We have that same type of relationship with BYU.
Yeah, kind of. All right, so Big Ten discussing a comeback. I guess they were supposed to talk about this week. Did they decide that they weren't going to talk about it this week? I thought I heard.
Well, they are talking about it. They're talking about a number of options.
But they didn't come up with anything yet.
Internally, yes. They haven't said anything to anybody officially, but there's been several reporters, national reporters, that are coming out and saying, hey, yes, this is what they're shooting for. At the latest that they would start playing again would be Thanksgiving if they were to do that.
I think that's ridiculous. As far as the Big Ten and the Pac-12 are concerned, I think it's ridiculous that they opted out of playing in the first place as quickly as they did. And I think that they thought everybody was going to follow them.
Absolutely they did.
So this is a case of these conferences trying to be leaders but now being followers.
Well, and Kevin Warren just did not read that well at all, and from all accounts, it's the presidents of the universities obviously that make these decisions, but apparently he was a driver for that decision as well, and clearly
and who is that?
He's the new conference commissioner for the Big Ten.
Okay,
so this is his first year. The outgoing commissioner was there forever and had done a great job. Was highly respected and well thought of. I think to your point, I think they did think that the rest of the conferences were going to play follow the leader, and I think this may be a situation where he thought he was too big for his britches, and at the end of the day, I think he's going to pay for it.
Yeah,
so
sounds like it. Yeah, I mean, these guys coming back at Thanksgiving, I think, is ridiculous. How can they expect to be in rankings with everybody else if they're not even playing till our season is almost ending at Thanksgiving?
Well, even if they play themselves, they're not going to have time to schedule anybody at a conference, right? If they do that, and they won't have enough games. I mean, you're only talking about potentially 7 games max because they're playing each other with the number of schools that are available.
These conferences have done have just lost a lot of money for their teams, for sure. It's horrible. All right, so ECU and Memphis games have been moved from Thursday to Saturday, both of those games. Yes, it gives us more time between games, blah, 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 but I also wonder, we've always liked those Thursday and Friday games because of the national TV spotlight.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are less games this year because the Big Ten and the Pac-12 are not playing at this point. So there's going to be more of those good slots available to us as well. So it could be good or bad here.
I got to imagine that ESPN had a big say in this too already. So the conference had to come back and talk to those guys and come back and say, hey, we're good with this, or we're going to give you a better slot because of this, because, it does shake things up for everybody involved. I do think, if you look at the Labor Day coverage for the major networks that are on there in the slate of games, you see some G5 games like SMU's been elevated and given a lot of attention because of this. I think we'll see the same treatment during those 2 weekends. They just don't have the inventory.
Okay, so the new dates are ECU September 26th and Memphis October 17th. And then FIU is leaving our date that was scheduled with them this year open for us to play them next year, I guess, that's nice of them, but we'll see if we have something better at this point. So, okay, let's take another break, and we'll be back, and we will talk next about some recruiting, it sounds like, and some transfer-type stuff. Hello, Night Nation. This is Andrew Phegley reminding you to tune in every Tuesday night, 9 to 10 p.m. on WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, plus the WDBO app for Knightline at Night. Brought to you by Chad Bar Law. We'll be taking your calls and your texts reacting to the previous week's UCF sports action, and you never know who will show up. Once again, that's Knightline at Night, every Tuesday, 9 to 10 p.m. on WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, plus the WDBO app. Go Knights and charge on.
Raising the bar on what to expect from your personal injury attorney is our commitment to you at Chad Bar Law. I'm Chad Bar, and as a UCF alum, I am proud to present Knightline at Night, Central Florida's only call-in show dedicated to our UCF Knights, every Tuesday at 9 p.m. And remember, if you or a loved one are injured in an auto accident, call us at 407-599-9036 to schedule your free consultation, or visit us at chadbarlaw.com. Offices Altamont Springs. Go Knights, charge on.
Ring, ring, ring. You want to be transferred to UCF? Hold, please. We're coming back with our update on our recruiting. And, of course, as always, and has been usual these days, we've got lots of transfers. And the first one we'd like to talk about is 3-star Florida transfer wide receiver Deontay Marks. He's got 3 years to play, but may have 4 with a waiver. He's from DeLand, so a local kid. 6'2", 177 pounds. Got a little height on him, which I like. He was class of 2019. Got some playing time last year and played well. Interestingly enough, he was also another kid that was recruited by UCF. So a lot of these transfers that we've been seeing have had contact with UCF in the past. So our coaches have been reaching out to them. They've been trying to recruit them. They decided to go elsewhere, and now they're coming back home. When I was watching his tape, he had great speed, and he was a receiver. He also was a kickoff returner in high school, including several TDs. So when you watch his tape, he could take it to the house. And it was 5 or 6 times I saw him do it. He had 45 receptions for 964 yards and 11 touchdowns as a senior, so the kid can ball. He did really well on screens and underneath. So this wasn't just an outside guy. Most guys that are 6'2", those taller receivers, you're expecting them to go on go routes on the outside, kind of like what you saw Gabe do. But this guy actually got up underneath, which is harder to do, and he did very well. He's very hard to bring down. He's a big body, and so when he catches that ball underneath, he actually sheds tacklers and gets going. He had great coverages in catches in coverage and can high point the ball really well using his height. So yes, he can do it on the inside, but he can also go on the outside. And that's really exciting for us because we tend to have receivers that'll do one or the other, but not both. He seems to be able to come in underneath, and that will create some variability for our guys. So if you got someone, like Trey, who's going for a go route down the sidelines, you got someone that can either be on the other side and then either come in for an inside route or keep going. So that'll be great against defenders who who everybody looks for tendencies, right? So when you're watching film on receivers, you're going to look for tendencies as a defender. And so if you can mix it up in the play calling, not only is it good for the rest of the offense, but it's also good for you because they don't know where you're going to be. He held offers from Florida, Louisville, Mississippi State, Nebraska, us, West Virginia, and others. And he was kind of weird in this whole recruiting situation, to say the least.
And we talked about him before. We talked about him on Knightline at night, and we may have even talked about him on this show before. It was weird that he committed here without the coaches saying that he could come here, and then he decommitted and went to Ole Miss, and then something happened there, I guess the same thing, and then he came back here, and he was waiting on clearance, supposedly. So,
well, I mean, the big part of it is we had other people in play. So we did mention it on Knightline.
We wound up getting those other guys as well, though. So we
figured out how to do it. Yeah. He Heupel and Shannon just scooped up everybody. They said, get on the bus.
Yeah. So a lot of big-time transfers coming in. Another guy here, I'll let you talk about him. And by the way, that Mountain Dew is really working for you. He's drinking Mountain Dew here, and man,
it's diet,
just going. Man. Well, still the caffeine in that is like working because you're rolling through this really fast. But that's fine. It's all good. Take a deep breath. Okay, there you go. All right. Talk about this guy, Robert Harvey.
All right, Robert Harvey, you kind of mentioned him earlier. He's the transfer from Virginia. He was a QB, interestingly enough, and that's kind of how he ended up at Virginia. We were actually recruiting him, as well as many others, for a running back position. He's extremely fast and shifty. He should have 4 years to play because he didn't play at Virginia, which is good. He's from Edgewater, Florida, class of 2019 player. He was listed at 5'10", 190 on Huddle. However, Virginia has him listed at 5'8". So it'll be interesting to see if he's actually got those 2 inches or not. But it didn't seem to matter when he played. In high school, he played a lot of option. It was weird because we're recruiting him as a running back. We want him to play running back, but when you watch his tape, it's all quarterback. So he actually had a great arm, great speed. He had a 4.4 140, which is pretty quick, and he passed a lot from the gun. Jeff Lebby was actually the one who was recruiting him for us as a running back, not a quarterback. And remember, the reason why he went to Virginia was to be a quarterback, and that happens a lot. And Andrew, you've been through this process and recruiting process. People will say, yeah, we'll make you a quarterback. Come on over. And then you sit. So
right.
That's kind of what happened here. He didn't always get his, as a QB, when you're evaluating him there, he had some tunnel vision. He didn't always get his feet set when he was rushed. And that's really why we wanted him to be a running back for us. But, his speed, he's got, when he was running those options in the back of the field, I mean, he would cut and he would go. And his acceleration was excellent. He had great vision once he got up to the line and found a hole and just kept going. So for us, I think, he's going to be a little bit of a project because he wanted to play QB and he had played QB, but he's got all the intangibles with the vision, the ability to cut, and the acceleration to be a great running back for us.
All right. Well, that's good. I mean, yeah, welcome to him as a running back. Obviously, it sounds like that's where he should have been in the first place. So sometimes it happens like that. You go someplace, they tell you that they're going to make you something, and then you sit there. So that's kind of a bummer. All right, so we've talked a little bit about who's opting in. Let's talk about who's opting out. Nothing official as yet, but I guess we've heard some names. We'll go through this little list, I guess. Devontae Dawson, Josh Kelly, who has been off and on again a couple of times through this whole deal. Was in the transfer portal, then he decided to stay, and now he's back in the transfer portal. So I believe that those two guys are absolutely gone off the team anyway. Tay Gowan is a question mark, and Kalia Davis supposedly, and then the big one that we've kind of alluded to and talked to, something's going on with Daryl Mack, from what we understand. Maybe it's him transferring out. Maybe it's not. We'll have to see officially about this stuff. As far as Mack goes, he's in a loaded quarterback room. So he's kind of been. It's unfortunate because I love the kid.
Great family too.
Great family, yeah, and they've just he's kind of in a bad spot here, being behind. He was behind McKenzie, obviously took over for him and played great. But then after that, Dylan stepped right in front of him when he broke his ankle. And it's kind of been a bad situation. People were clamoring for him a lot last year. Then he would come out there and do some good things, but then some things that weren't great as well.
He's in a situation where he hasn't had time to mature. He hasn't had, the opportunity like McKenzie had to kind of mature into the role, and then you've got someone who's just an absolute rock star in Dylan Gabriel, who was able to take advantage of his opportunity.
Yeah, and I think that break in the ankle thing, unfortunately, was the big kicker. I mean, he obviously, has the skills to do stuff. So I think that was the big deal, and I think that kind of sealed his fate for him here at UCF. So obviously, we haven't heard anything about this yet officially, and we'll see what happens. But good luck to him, obviously. Wherever he goes, it would give him an ability to transfer if he wanted to, I guess, and he could start at a lot of different schools. I mean, he could start pretty much anywhere. So, just kind of an unfortunate situation for him, but whatever. Well, it is what it is, I guess.
From what I've heard too, Quadri's really been stepping it up lately too.
Obviously, he has to.
Yeah,
he had transferred out officially at one point and then transferred back as well. And I don't know, who knows what happened there, why he decided to come back. Somebody said at one point that it was because of a girl that he transferred. She was going to go to the other school, so he's like, I'm going to transfer and follow her, and then who knows if something happened with that. These are college kids.
Yep.
Stuff like that happens sometimes. Sometimes you follow your
heart.
Well, I wasn't going to say that.
Well, it could be heart for football, playing first in football, or it could be what you were just mentioning.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, you're a college kid. Sometimes you follow your mind versus, your other mind, I guess. We'll just say that. So, anyway, I'm glad to hear that he's stepping up, and we'll have to, hear about all this stuff officially. I hate to, we can, have all kinds of rumors and stuff, and that goes everywhere. But I would rather report facts, so I can't wait till the true information comes out about this.
Well, I will say this, speaking about facts, and since we mentioned some D linemen there, the starting D lineman in our scrimmage, according to a parent that was there, was Charlton, Montalvo, Tournier, and Zayas, which is interesting. That's different than what we're used to seeing. Also heard that Mason Chilawa was not in attendance, so he may be someone to watch out for the opt-out as well. I probably butchered his last name. I'm sorry, Mason. But other than that, that's what the starting four was as of the scrimmage this Saturday.
Okay, yeah, so we'll see. I mean, all those things can change. All that stuff can change. You never know. Maybe they wanted to try that group together or whatever. NCAA update, I'll let you take this one.
Okay.
You can use the Mountain Dew caffeine buzz you got going again.
This one's a little long. So lots of things have happened since we last talked. One thing that happened was the conference championships have been canceled. Remember, the NCAA controls other sports, but not FBS football. That's done separately. So those have been canceled. Soccer and volleyball for UCF in both the men's and women's has been postponed, which means they are not going to be playing this fall. Earliest they could play is this spring.
Men's and women's soccer, not men's and women's volleyball.
Yes,
Just
men's and women's soccer and women's volleyball. Yes, sorry about that. And then, one of the things that's kind of developed since we last talked was this test that's come out that, allows doctors to check you for COVID within minutes. And it's also significantly cheaper versus the options that were out there before. So that's going to be interesting because I think that opens the door, and that's what they're using as an excuse for the Big Ten to come back in. But I think that makes it a lot easier and a lot more manageable, both from a fiscal perspective and then also from a people perspective. From what it looks like, the B1G, we talked about them a little bit earlier. The open questions really for them are, they won't be able to schedule an out-of-conference game, so will they have enough games for a playoff berth if they are deserving? A lot of this was driven...
Not if they come back in November, I don't
agree.
think. I mean, they're not going to push back the playoff, they've said. So... I just don't see how they could come back in November, and I mean they're going to have their own championship. I mean,
I think this is a money grab, to be honest. I mean,
I think it's that they made a bad mistake and they're trying to save face now, and it's really, I don't think it's possible. I think they screwed up big time.
Well, they screwed their schools,
and that's fine. I mean, it's good. More power to the conferences that didn't. Like, I mean, I've lost a lot of respect. I didn't have a lot of respect for the Big Ten anyway, because I don't like a lot of those teams, especially Michigan.
Yeah.
Horrible. But I just, whatever. Big mistake.
Yep. And then the NCAA grants eligibility expectations for those that play 50% or less or opt out. So basically what that means is all of the folks, and again, NCAA in charge of eligibility expectations for all of the other sports. So if you pay 50% or less of the games, you're going to get basically a free red shirt. So as Heupel had mentioned, that actually opens the door for them to play a lot with different options that they may not have played before. Freshmen coming in that'll allow them to get more experience and not count against eligibility requirements. So actually, it's a good thing from a coach's perspective. And the last thing I wanted to mention was the University of Miami has come out. And the only reason I mention the Florida schools so much is because we don't know officially what's going to happen at UCF yet. But every time someone comes out with something when the major schools, that gives us a little bit of a picture. So they are going to limit to 20% capacity. Masks will be required. No alcohol to be sold in the stadium, and the president wrote a letter. It basically said, hey, you make poor decisions when you drink, so we're not going to do that. No students, which was interesting, and donors only. So there will be no students allowed into the games. It will only be donors.
So if another school from Florida does that, that could be a possibility as well.
Yeah, it sets the precedence.
But
they are a private school, so it's a little bit different.
Yeah, but I mean, and they don't have an on-campus stadium and all that stuff either. So, all right. So, what's the next one you got here?
All right. So, one of the things we've got on the docket, there were rumors flying that there were some Mountain West schools that might be shopping the AAC again. As you may recall, we had Boise State and San Diego State that were candidates for the Big East, had signed on to the Big East, and then Boise decided to basically muscle the Mountain West, get its own deal, and then settled back there. And then San Diego State didn't have a travel partner, so they had to follow that back. So now, the big question for us with this, since the Mountain West isn't playing, I could definitely see someone like Boise State, San Diego State, Air Force, any of those teams coming back, Air Force for recruiting, because they, part of their whole thing is it's not necessarily to play the game and win the game, it's for recruiting and exposure. So if they're not getting that, could they be looking around and sniffing at the AAC again? So from my perspective, I'm going to ask you, Andrew, who do you think the most likely candidates would be, and who would you want to join the AAC if that happened?
Well, we've talked about this on numerous occasions. I've always said I wanted all the service academies to be in the AAC, especially Army along with Navy. I think that would be awesome. You just have to look. I always thought the San Diego State thing was really weird because they're so far away from us in San Diego. That would be crazy for travel. Boise State would even be crazy for travel. Air Force, not horrible. They're in Colorado. We already have a team that we play basketball with in Kansas. We have Texas schools, obviously. So I don't think that would be a huge problem. Boise and San Diego State never fit in the beginning. Yes, it would be good because Boise's, one of the better Power 5 or group of 5 teams. So that would be great. I don't know what they're going to do with this. I mean, it's obviously not going to happen for football this year. So
if it were
it's a little too late for that, I think.
If it were any of these 4 teams, would you, as the AAC commissioner, accept them? So, Colorado State, Air Force.
Colorado State wouldn't be bad either because they're right there. I mean, I could see us moving as far west as Colorado. But anything farther than that, I think, would be a lot of trouble. As far as, because even Colorado is in Mountain Time Zone. I mean, there's a time zone difference. Yep. So, it's going to make
Tell me
games.
About it. I'm in Central half the time.
Right, but they're in one more over. So I just think that adds a lot of difficulty to things.
Okay.
We play in the Eastern and the Central right now. We don't play anything in the Mountain, time zone. Games go later. It's a big deal to travel this way and play versus, traveling west and playing as far as time zones go.
What if you added BYU? Is that a big enough
BYU's
name plus one?
A ways away as well, though.
Well, they're in Utah, I know.
So the distance there is crazy. I would take the 2 from Colorado. I would take Arizona. I would take Air Force, and I would take Colorado State personally.
Yeah,
if I was to take any of them.
It would be nice to have Navy and Air Force in the fold. Colorado State, they actually spent a lot of money on their stadium recently. They just updated their stadium and been spending money on the athletics. It's just their football team hasn't done as well. What do you think? Would UCF want them?
I don't know about that. I mean,
because it's more competition.
I've never actually thought about this, to be honest.
Okay, so
this is the first time
off the cuff.
Off the cuff. I mean, I think UCF would want better, or I don't know. I mean, I think UCF. This is the AAC for one is a holding spot until we can get a Power 5 gig anyway. So I don't think it really matters.
I think that's what I was thinking, to be honest. I think UCF is better served by standing pat. One, the conference is considered better than any in the Mountain West. 2, I think that any of the schools that are added could be competition for UCF. And I think we've got a strong enough perception from a conference perspective that we're good where we are, and we pretty much can run the table any given year here. So for me, I think from UCF's perspective, I think we would want to stand pat. I think the AAC might want to look at it because they know there's 3 schools that will jump if they get the chance.
Yeah. I mean, we need to add, I think, one more just to make it even like it was before. But we'll see how all this plays out. I think that's going to take quite a while. We just need to get through the football season first before we deal with any of this stuff. Go ahead with the NFL stuff as well.
All right. So, as you know, preseason camps galore in the NFL. So we wanted to check in a little bit on some of our NFL nights. As you heard earlier, there was a comment by Coach Heupel, AK, about AK. He's making a lot of noise up in Philly. They're actually running him as a receiver, kind of like a Darren Sproles kind of thing. And I read an article recently that the reason he chose, after going undrafted, to go to Philly was because they had Darren Sproles call him and say, hey, this is how we could use you. So they actually have him running with the wide receivers, and he's making a little noise of his own, saying he's the fastest guy on the squad. So apparently the some of the guys up there are saying, well, run me. So we'll see how that shakes out.
He probably is the fastest guy.
I think he is.
He's probably one of the fastest guys in the NFL, to be honest with you.
Yeah. I saw something that said he had a 4.3940 in that because you remember he didn't get the chance to go to the combine, nor did he get to do a pro day because it was canceled. So we never really got confirmed times on him, but in the article it says 4.3940.
Well, when my guy from Kansas City gives him a call and wants to run with him, then we'll see.
Okay.
So I think my guy, the Cheetah, is the fastest guy in the NFL personally.
Next up is Traquan Smith. So he's kind of in an interesting position. He played through injuries last year. He did really good the first 2 years, or year or two that he was out there. So this is a big year for him in trying to make a name for himself. He's been sitting at that third or fourth spot. But by all accounts, Sean Payton wants him to play a bigger role. So this may be a breakout year for him, which is going to be interesting. And speaking of the Saints, Tay Train is down there in New Orleans as well. And he had 2 100-yard rushing games in the 2 opportunities that he had. So there's a lot of buzz down there on getting him more involved. And whether it be in more of a fullback type position for the most of the time, because he runs with his, straight up and down, pretty much vertical, or just getting him more touches in general, because he's clearly making a lot of noise down there.
Yeah, I think he needs more touches in general. They have, a crowded backfield there as well, but I think in the NFL you need a bunch of guys in that running back position, especially just because things happen. And
those guys get wear and tear more than pretty much any other position on the field. Gabe Davis is tearing it up for the Bills, so we all knew he was good, and Bills fans are figuring out that he is really that good. So there's been a lot of tweets out there about his catches. He had a couple of over-the-shoulder grabs, and he seems to be fitting in really well with the Bills, and they're excited about him.
Yeah, I think he'll do really well there. This next one is interesting to me. Go ahead with that.
Yeah, so you're right. It is interesting because Tristan Hill had some challenges with the Cowboys as of late. They took him.
His challenges, though, he was falling asleep during meetings and not showing up for meetings. So if he's turned the page, that's a wonderful thing. And I guess the starter in front of him is hurt, so
correct.
It opens up the door.
Yeah, the Cowboys last year brought in a veteran starter there that was expected to play. He tore a ligament, and he's going to be out for the season pending surgery. So apparently Tristan has really stepped it up in the offseason, and he has a golden opportunity to step into the starting role, which is what the Cowboys expected from him to begin with. So for him, we've seen what he can do when he goes at full speed. I feel like he could do really, really well with the Cowboys if he's figured it out.
Yeah, I'll believe it when I see it from him, just because of the challenges that he has had with discipline.
Yeah.
And that's, he had some issues here as well. So I'll believe it when I see it from that kind of guy. So.
And your man, Neville Clark,
Neville
is doing really well at the Vikings camp. So he's turning some heads, and he's got that same attitude that he had here. And that's really, like you said before in our previous in Knightline at Night, he was choosy. He got paid. They really wanted him, and clearly he's getting the opportunities to play, and he's doing really, really well in his opportunity there with the Vikings.
Yeah, I think that I'll say it again, I think that he will be the guy that makes the biggest impact. Maybe Gabe Davis as well, but I think Neville has more of an opportunity to make a big impact this season. As far as the new guys, AK, Gabe, and Neville, I think Neville will be the guy that prospers the most personally. We'll see. Sounds like Gabe's doing really well too, though. So.
He is. He's really turning heads. So I'm happy for him. There was a lot of talk on whether he should have waited another year before coming out, but he's a really, really good dude. He's local. His brother's on our team as a tight end. And, if you've ever met him, and I've met him several times, I actually talked to him a little bit before the bowl game against Marshall last year. He's just a genuine human being, and I wish him nothing but well.
Bruce Miller's back, huh?
Yeah.
With the Jags?
I don't know how that happened, but it seems like all the UCF guys seem to gravitate back towards the Jacksonville Jags.
Florida, yeah.
But yeah, he's back. He's playing.
It's kind of like Last Chance U.
Yeah.
The Jaguars are that franchise, I think, in the NFL. Like if you've had issues and got kicked out, maybe they'll take you and you can get back to a real team.
It used to be the Bengals, but
right.
I'll gladly give that to Jacksonville Jags.
But yeah. Is he playing fullback or what is he doing?
Yeah, he's playing fullback. So he's coming back into that system. Remember, San Francisco used him as a fullback for a while, and then, that's kind of gone out of style with the NFL in general. But it looks like the Jags and Coughlin are trying to bring him back in that capacity.
That's interesting, personally. Yeah. You can use the fullback as a blocker. There's a lot of blocking that can be done out of the backfield. And when he did run it, he did pretty well. Had a couple touchdowns, and he was fun to watch running the ball for sure.
Well, they've had trouble with their O-line, right? So they've focused a lot on defense in the last few draft classes and trades. So they've had a great defense, but their big problem has been running the ball. So I'm thinking maybe they're hoping that he can open some holes for their running backs to take some pressure off those quarterbacks, because they've been absolutely getting killed, like Blake Bortles was, who still has not found a home, which is interesting.
Yeah, and that's too bad for Blake. Blake has some things I think that he needs to deal with, and hopefully Blake will be back at some point. Maybe he needs a year off to think about things and get his head straight personally. All right, you got hoops in here. Is there hoops news? Is anything being talked about college basketball at this point?
Believe it or not, there actually is. So the NCAA has come out and said officially that they're going to make a decision on the hoop season on or around September 15th. So the middle of September, we'll get an idea of what they plan to do with that. If the Big Ten's coming back in November or before, I would imagine it's probably going to be a go.
I don't think that this Big Ten thing, I find that really, really strange. And I don't, it's just so weird. Why would you come back and play football in November when everybody else is starting in September?
The only thing I can think of is
that's crazy.
They've got a bunch of pressure from their players. They've got a bunch of pressure from their parents. I mean, there was a lawsuit, right?
Yeah, but they should work it out where they can play with everybody else, or just skip the season like they said they were going to in the first place.
I agree.
This drives me crazy. I do not like this subject.
All right, so we'll move off of that.
No, I mean, you know what I'm saying, though.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Poor decision making.
It's totally poor decision making, and they should pay for that. Their commissioner and their presidents of the schools made the decision. They should stick with it.
Yeah, what's going to be interesting is
they're going to mess the entire thing up, and then they're going to want to be part of a playoff that they're not going to be eligible for because they're not even going to have enough games.
Agreed.
So,
all right, back to hoops.
Sorry.
No, that's all right. So CJ Walker and UCF put out several different social media posts that hinting that we think that he may be cleared or close to being cleared. So we all expected him to be cleared given the COVID.
As far as eligibility because of a transfer.
Correct, because normally he'd have to sit out a year, which would allow him to play for us immediately and would be a great upgrade to our depth. On top of that, Mr. Rothstein, who comes out with his review, he's a hoops insider and journalist. He ranked us number 8 in the AAC pending CJ's eligibility. And
otherwise, we're last.
No. Actually, the opposite. He said we're 8 as we stand right now, but if we add CJ into the mix, he thinks that they'll move us up.
Oh, okay.
So there's been a lot of transfers in the AAC that are coming in that may get immediate eligibility, so it's a mess. Darius Perry from Louisville made the list as an impact transfer. He had Houston and Memphis as the teams to beat. Now, the interesting thing about Houston, I expect they have done well. They've continued to do well. Memphis has been a bust. So what's interesting to me is they brought Penny in to get them
Penny
to
Hardaway.
Penny Hardaway to get them to the NCAA tournament. He's done great in recruiting, but the knock on him was he's a great recruiter, but he can't coach. So if he doesn't do it this year, is he going to be in the hot seat? And remember, he's a kind of like Scott Frost was for Nebraska. He is an alum and a famous alum for Memphis. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. As I mentioned,
they'll probably let him drive it right into the ground like Scott Frost.
Well,
does.
I mean, if anything, their season ticket sales went through the roof with Penny.
Yeah.
So
No, I know.
just for that reason, I think you may be right. 2 Cows players were cleared for transfer, and it bodes well for them. Those were 2 highly rated players. I won't say much more about
Going to
that.
the packing house.
Yes. Just in general, this team could surprise a lot of people with Colin Smith coming back. I think with Colin Smith, Darius Perry to provide some stability at guard. Remember, we've got Darren Green out there, our sharpshooter. And we've got some great forwards. So if we're looking at that as a whole package, if they can put it together, I think we'll have a solid team.
If CJ plays, I think it'll be a huge boost.
I agree.
So, and with this year and the NCAA rules that they haven't really made very many rules. They've tried, I guess, but with the eligibility thing and all that stuff, I think pretty much anybody can get their waiver to play this year. So that wouldn't surprise me if he gets to play. So
Agree there.
That would be cool. All right. We want to talk about any of this other stuff? We had some odds and ends here. The CFL canceled their season. That's pretty interesting. But Brandon Alexander will be on the radio with us on Knightline at night. If you remember, Brandon Alexander was on the Fiesta Bowl team. He was a safety and plays corner, field safety actually, plays field safety in the CFL and was on the Grey Cup winning Winnipeg Blue Bombers. So that will be cool to have him on there, and he'll talk to us a little bit about that and what that means for him. What else you got here? You got Barstool. Is that guy alive? Is the Barstool guy, is he alive? Because I think he had COVID or something, right?
Yep. He's definitely alive.
Did you see his Twitter thing where he was like, that dude is hilarious, by the way. I love that guy.
He is edgy.
He's awesome.
But he's hilarious. You're right.
He's awesome. So he's alive. Is that a possibility that they could sponsor the stadium at UCF?
Well, whether it's a possibility or not, I won't say, but I will say this. They did come out as a prequel to one of their podcasts and provided a short video on Barstool Sports that showed them talking about the fact that they did reach out to UCF officially and try to sponsor the stadium. So it would be interesting to say the least. I mean, there's definitely some...
On his podcast, he did that?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
So,
that's interesting. So he mentioned that on
yes.
there. Wow.
And he mentioned the real national, trying to get on a national championship stadium and blah, 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 blah.
Really?
Yeah,
wow.
he wasn't saying that in jest. So
cool.
That was a possibility.
I've never listened to his podcast, believe it or not. But he's very. I watch a lot of his pizza videos.
Yeah,
and he's very interesting.
He's funny, but he's edgy, and so
I like him.
Like in a way that's good for UCF because we're edgy. We're against the norm. But then the flip side of that is how edgy is too edgy for UCF. So
yeah. All right. What else you got here?
Tate Gowan is the fastest on the team. At least he thinks so.
Really?
So yeah, he's out there talking smack.
He talks a lot anyway.
Yeah, he
Tate
does.
Gowan talks a lot.
Yep.
Says a lot on social media. Maybe he shouldn't say as much personally, but we're going to see if he's one of the guys that plays as well, because I've heard his name in the opt-outs as well.
Yeah, and there was a lot of
he may be the fastest leaving the team if he opts out. So.
And there was a lot of expectations around him playing this year. What was interesting too, and we've heard about the backfield quite a bit. Hearing Mr. Lester's name again by Randy Shannon. Now I don't know if you remember, he had an injury, but before that, Dylan Lester was always on the lips of Randy Shannon. So I have some high expectations for him coming in, and it looks like he came back with a vengeance from his injury. So it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, I'm hearing Tate Gowan may not be available either for this year, which would provide more opportunities for someone like him.
Okay, and who is this Riley Patterson guy?
He's the Memphis guy.
He's the coach now for Memphis?
No, not the coach.
Oh no, he's a player. Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's a player. He's a player for Memphis, and so he went out of his way this past week to talk about UCF, and he said that it's definitely the loudest environment he has played in, which I believe. I mean, you listen to that Cincinnati game. And it's a great rivalry, which I don't know how much of a rivalry it is when it's 0-13 since we've both been playing in FBS. They beat us the one time when we were in FCS, but have not won since then. He's happy to play us and looking forward to beating us this year. So what I say...
Was this the guy that's opting out, though, or not?
No,
it's a different guy.
No.
Okay. So, I have no idea who this Riley Patterson guy is.
I believe he's his kicker. He's the kicker.
He's the kicker?
He's the kicker.
He's the kicker, and he's talking smack about... Oh.
Yep, so what I say to Riley Patterson is this... 0-13, buddy. Thank you for the compliment, but you aren't winning this year.
I honestly, seriously did not know who he was. I thought he was I thought he was a coach or something. I thought maybe he was the new coach at at the Cows over there.
When the kickers are talking smack for your team,
I've never heard of him.
And when they're talking smack for
never
your team,
heard of her.
That's a problem.
Yeah. Oh boy. All right. Well, next we open up the Ask Knightline inbox. So we'll take a break and we'll be right back with that.
Knight Nation, this is Adam, one half of the dynamic duo that is the Sons of UCF, which is found only on the Knightline Sports Network. Join UCF Mike and I each week as we bring you some of the latest from in and around UCF sports, including such great segments as the Josh Heupel Translator, Top 8 Lists, and Cow of the Week. We'll also bring you some of the most in-depth and unique interviews with some of your favorite former Knights. You don't want to miss a moment, so make sure you subscribe to the Knightline Sports Network wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll take care of the rest. Go Knights. Charge on.
Hey Jeep Wrangler owners, have you ever sat in your office at work and watched the rain just pour into your Jeep because the weatherman said that there was a 0 chance of rain? Or you put your doors back on because there was a 100% chance and then not a drop of rain fell? Well, there's a company out there that can help take the worry away and give you the peace of mind to be without your doors. The company's called Life Without Doors. They make waterproof rain curtains and dash covers for Wranglers. Life Without Doors is there to help make the decision to leave the doors at home an easy one. Find out more at lifewithoutdoors.com.
I'm Jeff Allen. Join me each and every week on the Knightline Sports Network for the AAC Report. We bring you in-depth coverage of each school in football, basketball, baseball, softball, soccer, golf, tennis, and more, as well as bring you insider interviews and focus in on the biggest games and news of the week. That's all right here each week on the AAC Report, only on the Knightline Sports Network.
Ask a Knightline is brought to you by Chad Barr Law. Chad is a UCF alumnus and diehard Knights fan. Chad Barr Law handles auto accident, slip and fall, and personal injury cases. Call Chad today at 407-599-9036 for a free consultation. That's 407-599-9036. Armor up and call Chad Barr Law today. All right, time again for Ask Knightline. We're answering the questions listeners posted on our Facebook page or via Twitter at hashtag Ask Knightline. Selena this week at UCF Selena. Who benefits most from the extra year of eligibility? Will this be an opportunity to increase NFL stock for guys like Bam, or do you think they leave at the end of their senior year anyway?
Ooh.
Go ahead with that, Roger, if you want, and I'll chime in second.
Okay, I'll try to chew on that a little bit. So, Selena, thank you for the question this week. Who benefits from the extra year of eligibility? To me, it's Mackenzie Milton. So if you're looking at it just globally and the entire team, I think he has the most to gain.
He's going to have a doctorate by the time that ends, though. He'll be a doctor of physical education.
And that's okay, because he'll hopefully be back to health as much as he can be. And
he might even be a knee surgeon at that point. You never know.
But I think for him, I think he benefits the most. As far as NFL stock, I don't know if that really helps them, if anything. I do think that Bam will benefit from that as well, because he is on a medical red shirt. So we did get an update briefly from him. He posted something on social media about himself, showed him running. He said that he's not back to 100% yet, but from the looks of the video, he was able to run at a full speed. He was able to cut on that knee. Now, he had a full knee brace from the ankle all the way up when he was doing it, but he looked pretty good. And I don't think it really makes a difference one way or the other. If anything, I think it would make them more likely to leave than the other way around.
Yeah. I agree with you that Mackenzie Milton probably benefits the most from an extra year of eligibility. And I don't know. We talked about this a little bit on Knightline at Night on our last episode about the NFL stock for guys going out if they don't play this year or if they do play this year and all that stuff. I don't know if that helps your NFL stock if you opt out, especially. I would think personally, if I was an NFL general manager, if you opted out of this college season, that would put a bad taste in my mouth, personally.
I think unless you had a valid reason, I would want to know what the valid reason is.
Yeah, I don't know if we discussed that as well, and what reason is valid and what reason's not. I mean, I don't know. This raises a lot of questions with people. I think if they opt out, they better have a damn good reason. Personally, in my opinion, to opt out anyway. Otherwise, you're probably playing games and you want to transfer or something anyway. Something has to be weird, or you have to have a really, really good excuse. Personally. Otherwise, I think you're going to be looked down on not only by your team and your teammates and your coaches, but by the NFL as well, personally. Yeah, and I don't really know about the last thing. Do you think they'll leave at the end of their senior year anyway? I think some guys will. I would say if they don't opt out of playing this year. I'm sure, who knows? The whole thing is messed up for another 3 or 4 years now anyway,
Agreed.
To be honest with you. With the way that the transfer rules have changed and everything else, and the ability to opt out and receiving another year, that's going to... Who knows how they're going to do that? That's going to take scholarship money and scholarship positions away from people that are freshmen coming in and position and playing time and everything else. So,
well, they've already said they won't count those against it. So do you have people like
are
Alabama?
You going to have 200 people on the team now?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
I mean,
is it people
is
like Alabama who's going to do that,
Yeah.
and then they have a free transfer ride, and it's basically like a gray shirt all over again in the middle of the season after they prove themselves?
They need to make some real rules with all this stuff, or it's going to really, really hurt college football, personally. All right, Golden Knight 2 at Golden Knight 2 on Twitter. What capacity do you think the Bounce House will allow for the first home game? We talked about this a little bit already. I'm going to say it's probably going to, I think 20%. I think they're going to go and they're going to follow what happened, what Miami's done down there. I don't know about with the student thing. I know that it's very important for Danny White and UCF to have students in there, so I don't think it's going to be like that, where they wouldn't allow students. But you never know, though. I mean, they may want to keep those students, not around. I don't know how they would even do the student sections. They would spread them out with everybody else. I don't know. Because those student sections are usually kept completely, separate. So it'll be interesting to see what they come up with this.
Yeah, I would guess that they would go back and kind of create barriers or separate them and then spread them out amongst that particular section. So you take a quarter of the stadium or whatever it ends up with and spread them out there. I don't think, there have been... Now, by all accounts, UCF, for the most part, from what you're hearing, has done a pretty good job with this and people going back on campus, but then you see videos of certain sororities out there partying. So I would think from UCF's perspective, they would want to keep the students separate as much as possible from the general pop.
I have a stepdaughter that is on a college campus right now, and she says that there's not a lot of social distancing going on. So
I can tell you that's North Florida. And North Florida is entirely different. I can tell you that because I live there, right? And North Florida, in that area specifically, because she doesn't live too far away from where I live, and that area is
not a bad thing. No, I'm sure. Oh boy, I should have warned her.
Oh boy.
Yeah, but it is different. But yeah, it's southern Alabama as well.
Oh,
so,
for sure.
So there's a difference there as far as people wearing masks and stuff.
Although I do see,
I was just up there last week. So.
I do see UCF plates in Destin area.
Yeah. I saw
can
them
tell you that.
My whole trip back and forth from there, from Pensacola and then into Alabama as well. I saw one on I-10. So there are a lot more than I realized, just outside of the Orlando area. So we'll see about that. We'll see what the attendance. I'm looking, or the capacity. I'm looking forward to hearing what UCF comes up with this. This will be a big thing when they do that. So.
I do think the one thing that may play into this is that we're waiting so long to do this. Is the longer it the longer we can wait, the lower the quote-unquote curve goes, and the better we're off. We may benefit from having a little extra capacity versus what everybody else is, putting out there. So,
and then Orlando City, that also is in Orlando, is having fans. I guess that there's
25%.
25%. Okay, so 20 to 25% is probably what I'll say. And then Brian W. Peterson on Twitter, will we make the CFP this year? We talked about this as well during the show. Unfortunately, these were just things that we were going to talk about anyway, all this stuff pretty much. But we do appreciate your questions. And I appreciate them being football questions and not, like, what did you have for breakfast or whatever? Because we've had some of those questions. But I did like some of those
Cinnamon Toast
ones.
Crunch or Lucky Charms?
Yeah, well, I don't eat cereal. But anyway, it's a milk thing. Anyway, will we make the CFP this year? I think this year, obviously, is a better chance because it's the Power 3 instead of the Power 5. So we'll see. I think that the winner of the AAC, no matter who that is, whether it's Tulane or Cincinnati, you never know who it's going to be. You never know. Things have happened. I would love for it to be UCF. It won't be the Cows. Obviously, well, I didn't mention them. So SMU, I mean, who knows? This is going to be a different football season, period. We'll see who steps up and who doesn't. And the winner of the AAC, I believe, yes, will make the CFP this year.
Now, the one thing I think, to your point, is that we don't have a normal season with regard to rosters. We've got some people we don't know yet who's going to opt out. Like we said, officially, that's going to affect it. And number two, what happens during the season? Do these guys stay in their bubble? Does somebody get sick? Who do we lose on the line? So do I think we had the best athletes in the conference right now? Can we win? Absolutely. Do I think we could compete in the college football playoff? 100%. But I think it remains to be seen how seriously they take this and how that impacts our season.
Yeah. Well, if you watched that game on ESPN last night, the FCS game, there was some, they were following the rules for the most part, but at the end of the game, everybody rushed out onto the field, the players, and they were all, touching each other and hugging each other and high-fiving and all that stuff. So I guess maybe in that environment, but one of the things that I observed during that was that they had less people go out for the coin toss, but then everybody was out there at the end of the game. So,
well, I mean, even the refs had electronic whistles. They didn't have real whistles.
So I don't get that. I mean, so what? So they're not blowing the whistle?
Correct. They're pushing a button on their belt
that makes a whistle sound.
Exactly through the
It
speakers.
was hard
in
to
the
hear
stadium.
the whistles. If you're a player on the field, that's hard to hear.
Yeah, and there were only 2,000 people there, and they weren't making a lot of noise.
Right.
So,
oh boy, yeah, we'll see. There's a lot to be seen yet, so we shall see. The first game has happened of the college football season, and I don't care if it was an FCS game or whatever. It was still college football. It started. And we'll see where it goes from here. Thank you very much for your questions. We really appreciate it. And now, news and notes from the world of UCF sports.
After a successful freshman campaign for Tunrata Piran, she continues to impress on the golf course, placing 6th overall and 1st in the field of amateurs at the Singha Sat Thai LPGA Championship.
Not stopping.
Shooting 213, -3 in the 3-day 54-hole tournament. The event, which started on August 27th and wrapped up on August 29th, was played at the Royal Hills Golf Resort and Spa in Nakhon Nayok, Thailand. Thanks, Andrew. Pidden shot her best rounds on the second and third day of the event, carding a 68, -4, and a 69, -3, respectively. Between the 2 days, she collected 9 birdies, allowing her to climb the leaderboards and finish 3 strokes ahead of the next closest amateur competitor.
I think it's Tunrata Pidan. I don't know.
I know I murdered it, but, I tried.
Tunrata Pidan, I think. But anyway, yes, you did a good job. Luckily, I can say this now. The American Conference announced on Tuesday, it was actually... I just copied this, and it actually, I think they did this on Tuesday. Yeah, it was Tuesday, actually, because we were on the air. So
That's right.
The American Conference announced on Tuesday that it will postpone all competition and conference championships in the sports of men's and women's soccer and women's volleyball until the spring of 2021 to align with the NCAA championship season. The decision regarding cross-country competition will be forthcoming pending further NCAA clarification. The decision was approved by the conference athletic directors and senior women administrators following the NCAA Division I Board of Directors confirmation that the Division I Fall Championships would move to the spring. We remain committed to providing our student athletes a quality experience and competing at the highest level of intercollegiate athletics, said American Athletic Conference Commissioner Mike Oresco, or Milk Carton Man, as I like to call him. We're prepared to conduct competition in the fall in men's and women's soccer and women's volleyball, but moving into the spring, I'm confused. But moving to the spring was in the best interest of our student athletes, as it will align with our schedules to allow our teams to compete for national championships. The American will announce the spring, regular season, and championship formats and schedules after the NCAA Division I Council clarifies the revised and playing and practice season championship format.
I think I actually had the easier one.
Well, I made these kind of long because we didn't have much. There's not a lot of news and notes. So I figured that we would just use what we had. So I put all of that stuff. These were statements directly from the UCF website that probably a lot of people don't see, that don't go to that website and look at stuff like that. All right, this has been Knightline 235. I'm Andrew Phegley.
And I'm Roger Phipps. Go Knights!
Charge on.
UCF, charge on to the field.